Before the age of digital tools and tactical gear, one item stood as a quiet constant in the pocket of every Royal Navy sailor. The Seaman's clasp knife, also known as the Pusser's Dirk. Issued by tradition and trusted by generations and forged in the steel heart of Sheffield, this blade wasn't just for cutting rope or opening rations, it was a symbol of readiness, craftsmanship and the silent bond between man and machine at sea. Let's uncover the story behind this knife that helped rule the waves. So this is the Royal Navy jackknife or Seaman's clasp knife, or also called the Pusser's Dirk. Why the Pusser's Dirk? Well, Pusser was slang for purser, who was originally the civilian person who would provision a ship and eventually became a commissioned naval officer in the later Navy. So the purser. This particular knife is made by Joseph Rodgers of Sheffield, which we can see through the tang stamp. Let's see if we can get a good view of that. So Joseph Rodgers were originally founded in 1724 by John Rodgers, and this iconic cutlery firm began with a simple workshop and a powerful trademark, the star and the Maltese cross. Hopefully you can see that. Joined by his sons, including Joseph, the company moved to 6 Norfolk Street in the 1780s, where it remained for nearly 150 years. Renamed Joseph Rodgers Sons in 1800, the firm became world-renowned for its penknives and pocket knives. And in the 19th century, it had earned royal warrants and global prestige, symbolising British craftsmanship at its best. Unfortunately, it ceased trading by 1983, which was obviously after this was produced. And in 1986, the name was revived by the Eggington brothers, and more recently, it's been bought by Durham Duplex. So that's a little bit about the maker. So let's have a closer look at the knife, starting with the steel blade. So this is carbon steel, which makes it easy to sharpen. If you look at it, and I think you can probably see here, if not, I'll put a close up. In this case, it's been sharpened with a file. Now, I understand that this was to make it better at cutting rope. It's a sheep's foot blade, which is typical of the Royal Navy clasp knives. I guess this is because you're less likely to stab yourself while you're at sea, or stab one of your comrades if you get into an argument. I showed the tang stamp and we can see that here. So Rodgers of Sheffield. And on the other side, we have the vocab number, which, if I can get it into focus, is 21306. Now, this is a sort of stock number, and it came in the mid-1960s. So we know that this was after that. So this sort of knife had been around from 1939 to 1986. It was phased out for a lighter and more compact stainless steel version. Looking at the scales, you can see that these are an aluminium alloy with steel liners and steel pins. And on here you can see something's been stamped. It looks like BL Wood, and then I think that's somebody's service number, which is P119152. Now the P stands for Portsmouth, and this was one of the home port divisions. At this time, I think there was D for Devonport, L for Lowestoft, and R for Rosyth in Scotland. So you get a good view of the scales there. Here's the bale, and typically this was carried on a lanyard, and I'll try and put a photograph here if I can find one, because it is pretty heavy. So this knife, well, it weighs in at 239 grams or 8.4 ounces, so it's quite heavy. The size closed is 125 millimeters or 4.9 inches. Open, with the blade open, it's a full 200 millimeters or 8 inches. And the blade itself is 78mm or 3.1 inches with a cutting edge of 68mm or 2.7 inches. Now, looking at the spike, so this is the Marlin Spike, which was used for rope work. Great for untying knots in rope that got too tight just to open with your fingers. Now this is 88mm long or 3.5 inches. So these aren't available to buy new anymore, but you can still find them at antique fairs. I actually found this at the Malvern Flea Fair, which is fairly close to me, and you can still get them for a good price. Expect to pay a fair bit for one in good condition. A lot of these have been used and abused over the years. With it being a carbon steel blade, then a lot of these are rusty, but well worth having. And I hope you agree, it's a fantastic, albeit heavyweight knife. From the decks of destroyers to the pockets of sailors, the Joseph Rodgers Clasp Knife carried stories as sharp as its blade. It wasn't flashy, but it was faithful, a quiet companion in the chaos of the sea. As we close this chapter, remember sometimes the smallest tools hold the biggest histories. I hope you liked this video. Please leave me something in the comments if you've got one or if you had a relative that had one. Let me know what you think of it. And why not watch this video on some other Forces knives or this playlist here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.